Imagine for a moment that you and I are walking down a street when all of a sudden dark clouds start appearing in the sky. The temperature drops, the wind starts blowing a little bit, and then I look at you and say, it's going to rain. There's nothing magical about what I just said. It's not that I have some special gift that lets me see the future. But I still made a prediction. In this lesson, we are going to look at a particular reading skill that allows us to take the information we are presented and use that to help us make predictions about what is to come. In reading, predicting is simply making educated guesses about what will happen next based on observations and past experiences. In the example in the introduction, I was able to make the prediction that it was going to rain based on my experience with seeing dark clouds, a drop in temperature, and wind picking up. Once again, there's nothing magical about what I was able to do. I just know that based on previous experience, these things usually happen before it rains. In another example, let's imagine that we're driving down the street and the check engine light comes on. After a few moments, the car begins to rattle. Based on previous experience, we can make a reasonable prediction that the car is going to break down. We can also make a reasonable prediction that because the car is going to break down, we're also getting ready to write a big check to pay for the repair. How many of you are fans of horror movies? If you've watched as many horror movies as I have, you can usually determine that if somebody is getting ready to open a basement door, the first thought you're going to have is, don't go down into the basement. Why? Why is that the first thing that comes to mind? Well, more than likely, we've seen this scenario play out in many different horror movies. So what do our previous experiences with this scenario tell us? Well, more than likely, we know that something bad is about to happen. They walk down into the basement and the monster's going to get them. Or maybe the door will close behind them and lock and there's no one else in the house. They have no way of getting out. No matter what, this particular situation, based on previous experience, is going to tell us that, this is not a good situation to be in. But that's the great thing about predictions, is they make watching movies or even reading more exciting. To make predictions, we need to be good reading detectives and use what we know. So we're going to look for clues that suggest what may happen next. Or maybe clues that state causes and suggest possible effects. Or clues that state effects and suggest possible causes. In addition, we can also use clues that suggest how a person will behave in a given situation. We can use our previous experiences and take that information to help us make a pretty good guess about what is getting ready to happen. So, making predictions is very similar to a skill that we learned in an earlier lesson on drawing conclusions. But there is a little bit of a difference between a prediction and a conclusion. When we draw conclusions, we are going to look at what is happening now or what has already happened and use that to determine what's going on. With a prediction, we're looking towards the future. In this case, we're taking the information that we know and our previous experiences and use that to come up with something that will likely happen. Let's take a look at an example and see if we can make a prediction on what the woman in this passage is going to do. A woman walks into an art studio. She puts on a smock. She squeezes several colors of oil paints onto a palette and puts brushes of different sizes in a holder. She smiles and sits down in front of an easel with a blank canvas on it. When we look at the passage, what, based on previous experience and observations from the past, will help us predict what she is getting ready to do? Well, we can reasonably predict that she is going to start painting a picture. And we determine this based on specific clues that we found within the passage. These clues include art studio, smock, oil paints, palette, brushes, easel, and blank canvas. All of these considered together, in addition to our previous observations of when we've seen these particular items used in the past, we can reasonably predict that the woman in this scenario is going to paint a picture. Well, maybe that story wasn't really all that exciting. As we read, making predictions will add excitement to the story. It's kind of fun to try to guess what's going to happen next. I'm sure there are many times when we are watching a movie and we see certain events unfold that we're like, oop, this is getting ready to happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it doesn't take away from the excitement of trying to figure out where the story is going. To recap, a prediction is an educated guess about what will happen next based on observations and past experiences. In order to make a prediction, we need to look for clues within the passage that will help us decide what we think might happen. Take some time the next time you read a passage and practice this a little bit. See if you can determine what is getting ready to take place based on your experiences with the information that is presented to you within the story that you read.